So let's continue. I will make the question again from the beginning. So let's talk about Duterte's drug war. How and when do you expect that the extrajudicial killings of at least 7,000, maybe 8,000 or more, drug traffickers, addicts, and other innocent victims, including children, which Duterte calls collateral damage, by police and the so-called death squads, when will it end? How and when will it end?
Yes, right now we don't see the end in sight. He is operating on top of a very strong support base. There is some sense of acquiescence on the part of the Filipino people that they
acquiescence, you mean they
permission. Mm-hmm. Simply because Duterte has a strong propaganda machinery in place, actually paid employees, and social media plays a very strong role now in Philippine society, and through this avenue, he is actually bloated up the drug issue in the Philippines to become a crisis, and also even criminality as a crisis. And his central policy is really this war on drugs. It is the only policy that is fully articulated and also seriously implemented. So the defining character of this administration for now is really the extrajudicial killings, and he is confident and determined to actually continue it for as long as the majority of the people support extrajudicial killings. And what is scary is that he has effectively defined a section of Philippine society worthy of elimination. So one of the social costs of this war on drugs is the worsening collective sociopathy of Filipinos. But of course, the voiceless ones, the most impoverished communities, are the most affected, and there is some sort of on-the-ground demonstration with respect to what is happening. So a lot of people in these impoverished communities who believed in President Duterte before have now actually realized that he is not the proper leader for the Philippines. So.
Okay. It has to do with my next question. Why does he remain so popular among the people, even though he openly bloats about his bloody war, and even admits publicly of killings he made himself during his 22 years. He was mayor in Davao with death squads and everything. Why is he still popular among the majority of the Filipino people?
Yes, actually, he during his campaign, he made little effort to actually conceal his intentions, to actually make use of a hardline approach to stamp out drugs and criminality in the Philippines. In fact, even before he assumed office, he already encouraged, and the police was indeed already started engaging in extrajudicial killings. No, it's the reason why President Duterte is so popular, was so popular and continues to be popular, is that the Filipino people have a collective are collectively frustrated with respect to the lack of change from the EDSA revolution in 1986, which actually promised radical social reforms, the equitable redistribution of our nation's wealth, the democratization of essential services, opportunities, economic, social, and cultural rights, which would have uplifted the lives of the majority of our people. So the successive governments from the mother, the late President Corazon Aquino, to her son, President Noynoy Aquino, the one prior to Duterte, actually never translated their administrations into actual change for the people. And
From the Marcos era, you mean?
from the Marcos era. So, of course, we regained some sort of democratic space, but nonetheless, our social and political scientists refer to it as an elite democratic system, no? Or the liberal elite democratic system, where still 50 oligarch families capture Philippine politics and economy and have actually denied the majority of our people the most basic needs. And thus the last elections, during which President Duterte won, was actually the people's rejection, a repudiation of the past systems. And the people, unfortunately, put their faith on this sitting president. Another factor, major factor, is that the reason his platform against crime and drugs is so popular is because the most impoverished communities in the Philippines also are the most troubled with respect to criminality and drug use pervasiveness. If a mother in an urban poor area actually experiences a crime and complains to the police, then the police will do nothing. So a lot of people...
Because she's poor.
Yes, because she's poor. A lot of people would actually mistrust our inoperative, dysfunctional, and anti-poor criminal justice system. And thus, from the number 7th concern of the Filipino people, based on the surveys of various agencies, the issue of crime actually rose to number 2 because of Duterte's propaganda. So that's why a lot of Filipinos actually subscribe to the alternative dispensation system that this president has to offer, that circumvents actually the pillars or our criminal justice system, which, however dysfunctional, actually provides safeguards and counterbalancing measures, safety for everyone in Philippine society, supposedly. So justice is now simply settled on the streets, and this president and his other officials have openly incited violence, have encouraged, and this President Duterte actually opened Pandora's box. He actually consciously created the conditions so that extrajudicial killings, whether those done by vigilantes or the police, persist in Philippine society. 40 to 50 of the most vulnerable, the most beaten down, impoverished people die every day because of this kill policy.
Do you believe that anyone will ever be punished by the judicial system about these crimes?
We hope that someday we can hold perpetrators to account, most especially the ones who actually paved the way so that this policy can be brought to the national level from Davao.
Because Duterte is not alone. I mean, he
He's
has
not
a
alone.
whole mechanism under him
Yes.
that
Yes.
he relies on.
Yes, definitely. But right now, there is really a difficulty for human rights groups, human rights defenders, most especially the families of victims of extrajudicial killings, to actually hold perpetrators to account.
Why? Because of the judicial system is openly pro-Duterte
Yeah.
and conceal and maybe don't allow things to proceed?
Yes. Well, there are many factors, but mainly because of impunity, the families of victims of extrajudicial killings, at first instance, after the death of their loved ones, have the determination. But as time goes by, they tend to actually lose hope, and also mainly because of the fear for reprisal, actually decide not to pursue cases anymore.
Silence them,
Yes,
in a way.
yes.
They are silenced.
Yes. Also, this administration, the president himself has threatened lawyers
Yes.
who represent victims of extrajudicial killings, has threatened other actors, human rights groups,
Exactly.
which provide the courage for families to come forward. This administration, coming from the institutions, we have no hope, because institutions, whether the prosecution service, whether courts, they have either been intimidated by this administration or become co-opted. So it's difficult. It's clear that there is a lack or an absence of affirmative action on Philippine institutions and this administration's part to actually investigate and stop these killings. So yeah, it's really the arbitrary derogation of the right to life, the right to due process, and the right to be presumed innocent. So the only chance now is that we push this president to actually allow first the independent investigations from outside. That of course starts with allowing the UN Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial Killings to come to the Philippines, Agnes Calamard. But of course, as you may already know, President Duterte actually imposed several conditionalities which actually makes it impossible for Agnes Calamard to visit. One conditionality is to engage in a public debate with him.
Okay. There are credible reports of Human Rights Watch, recent report of Amnesty International, another recent report, even of police planting evidence in crime scenes,
Yes.
as well as paying hired killers,
Yes.
contract killers, to do the massacres.
Yes.
And even collaborating, I was reading about it and I couldn't believe it, with expensive funeral houses,
Yeah.
so that they are the ones that take the victims to be buried.
Yes.
Do you have any more information about all those allegations? Because they are credible allegations, credible reports from
Yes.
very credible organizations.
Yes. Actually, we have actually supported the reports of Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International because we ourselves, our work is rooted at the very most affected communities, and we do documentation work, and we have actually come to the same conclusion with respect to actually already existing police practices in the past. being actually um, uh, still done. The police actually exploiting the situation of the war on drugs, being in cahoots with funeral parlors, actually forcing the families to acquire of the services of these funeral parlors, which actually have raised their services as compared to before this war on drugs began. We also know have actually taken account of a reward system, a reward system coming from no less than Camp Crame, the main headquarters of the Philippine National Police. All police chiefs of various precincts are also forced to produce results, forced quotas, and if they do not perform as they are required to, don't produce the results that are required of them, then they are actually sent to Mindanao
in exile.
In exile, yes, in places which are more dangerous. I heard recently that I think 15 officers were sacked in the Bicol region, Region 5 in the Philippines, and Bicol region.
Bicol.
Yes, that's the Region 5 in the Philippines, and sent to Mindanao. We also early on in the war on drugs, but this was already a practice of the Philippine National Police, that they would actually, in most of the cases that we have documented, some were either merely trying to escape, but most never posed a threat to or were a risk to arresting officers.
Because they speak of self-defense.
Yeah,
that's why that's the explanation they give, that they were in self-defense, that the person took a gun out, was fighting back.
Yes. Most of the cases that we have documented, those who were being arrested were not posing a risk for the police officers.
And about the hired killers, you know, because there are also allegations about police paying hired killers. I don't know if they are from Davao or from everywhere in the country, because there used to be the death squads of Davao first, during Duterte's mayorship.
This is something extraordinary, actually. Experts actually refer to this as police vigilantism. President Duterte and Police Director General De La Rosa, Bato De La Rosa, actually sets the policy just as they would like it to be. If it's an open secret in the Philippines that this president, this administration actually makes it seem so in the public's eyes that the killings, just enough to disavow the killings, no? Just enough to say that we are not responsible for the deaths under investigation, but at the same time allowing in the public's opinion the state to actually take credit for these successes in the war on drugs. if it is purely vigilantism, then it may be seen as the weakening of the state because you would not have control over armed entities that are not attached to the state. So it's an open secret for Filipinos, an open understanding that these killings, even the deaths under investigation, are closely linked to the activities of the police. And indeed, you have certain circumstances when it was revealed that the police were actually the ones themselves undertaking the vigilante killings, dressing up as vigilantes.
Oh, really?
Yes. There's one in Mimaropa, a clear case when a police chief actually was unmasked by a fellow police officer.
Wow.
And this unmasked police chief was somebody bemedaled by the police director general.
Okay,
So,
unbelievable.
yeah. So, but essentially, it's multidimensional. We also know, and we've known for a long time, that the higher ranks of the drug trade is really made up of active police officers.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Let's talk about a little bit about the opposition, the political opposition,
Yes.
and the opposition parties. What can the opposition really do in the Philippines, since the authorities have already arrested? I was reading one of the most outspoken critics
Yes.
of Duterte's drug war, Senator Leila de Lima, accusing her of running a drug trafficking ring inside the prison. And now she faces even a life sentence
Yes.
if she's convicted.
Yes.
Under those circumstances, what can the opposition parties do in order to avert him? Because I was also reading that there was a motion for impeachment against Duterte
Yes.
from a lawmaker, from one
Yeah.
of the lawmakers. How does the opposition respond, and realistically, what can it do in order to fight all this?
Yes. Well, basically in the Philippines, the two other branches of government, our legislature, both the Senate and the House of Representatives, as well as the Supreme Court, have become co-opted. It's clear that President Duterte, the executive, actually effectively controls through supermajorities both chambers of the legislature, and also the Supreme Court justices. So basically, there are a few Philippine institutions that are able to counterbalance what is happening, and Duterte's political party. It's just the Commission on Human Rights within the government's superstructure that is able to actually still underscore disapproval on the human rights violations. Also in the Philippines, sadly to say, we effectively have never had a good political party system. No, it's a circus of sorts where politicians actually jump from party to party based on convenience and political patronage.
Maybe corruption as well?
Well, corruption as well, I think. So basically the largest political party, the most influential before Duterte, the Liberal Party, was effectively dissolved. And a lot of them actually jumped to the majority, to Duterte's party. So you do have these courageous and outspoken opposition senators and congressmen, congresspersons, but unfortunately they have also been thrown to the margins. For example, in our House of Representatives, you have a minority and a minority floor leader, but it was actually forged consciously by Duterte's cohorts, the leaders, his leaders at the House of Representatives.
Forged? In what way do you mean?
Yeah, it was surreptitiously actually shaped through elections at the House of Representatives to form what a beholden minority, a minority that is actually beholden to President Duterte, beholden to all also all the decisions of the supermajority. So we have what we refer to as the authentic minority, which is not officially recognized by the chamber. So these are 7 legislators who are courageously countering, for example, Duterte's priority legislations, which is the restoration of capital punishment.
Exactly.
Yes, which we painstakingly abolished 10 years ago. We're a state party to the second optional protocol, to the ICCPR. And also another one of his death legislations, his top priority also is to lower the minimum age of, they now call it, not criminal responsibility, social responsibility.
For from 15 to 9 years old.
15 to 9 years old.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
About the death penalty and also the change of law for young criminals, let's say. And so these are his priorities. Are those bills going to pass? Is he going to reinstate the death penalty?
Yes. Basically, for the first time in the history of Philippine legislature since the time of Marcos, has the leadership of this chamber displayed a lack of upright behavior. They have actually openly threatened their colleagues to
Lawmakers, you mean?
lawmakers, their colleagues, that they will actually lose their chairpersonships of valuable committees. They would lose deputy speakerships, and they would actually lose the projects that were promised to them if they vote no to the death penalty bill. We have done our political mapping project at the House of Representatives and at the Philippine Senate, and we are certain that the vast majority of our legislators are opposed to capital punishment. Unfortunately, this administration invoked what they refer to as party discipline.
I see.
So you're required to vote according to
what the party
the will
says.
of the party, and thus our legislators at the House of Representatives were not able to vote